Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath,
the podcast where we discuss relationships in movies and our relationships with them.
I'm Polina Grinbaum.
And I'm Diana Rojek-Sconard.
Hello, Diana.
Hey, Polina. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you, my podcast partner.
I know. We made it 2 years. It's amazing.
We're the best.
What? Thanks. I accept your compliment.
It's hard for us to accept compliments. It's not really, we weren't brought up that way.
Well,
Take a deep breath and say thank you.
Well, I am going to say thank you right now. Right now, I'm going to thank everyone who has downloaded an episode, all of our listeners who listened to that download that they downloaded, everyone who has left us a review or chimed in on some episode that we did, anyone who has told a friend about the show, thank you. We really appreciate that.
Yes. I love my friends, my current friends that I had before I started this podcast that listen, and I've made some new friends, and I just want to thank all of you. It's really a treat, and it's really fun talking about the podcast outside of obviously just Diana and I, because sometimes you do something like this, and you're like, you're into it for its own reasons, and you kind of forget sometimes that people listen, which is sort of the point. But it's been really fun. And I want to thank all of our guests that have been on. Those have been some of my favorite conversations, as much as I love talking to Diana. I love talking to Diana and other people as well. So I just really want to thank you guys for your time and energy and really fun afternoons and conversations that I've been lucky enough to have.
Yeah, I second that. And I also, of course, want to say thank you so much to the Lady Pod Squad and the Castaways for, welcoming us into their community and making it so it's not just Polina and I recording something, putting it out there, and then, crossing our arms going, come on, download. Where are people? Instead, it's an adventure. It's a project that's brought us to the forefront of amazing relationships, and I could not be more grateful.
Yeah, I agree. I've just met some really fun people and had some really fun times, which was kind of a surprise. Part of podcasting is just the community is so friendly, so friendly, so much more friendly than you can imagine. And also, I also want to thank Ryan, who has been on the podcast I think twice, and he introduced us. Then I wouldn't have a podcast if it wasn't for that. So
I will, I guess, out of obligation, also thank Ryan for, marrying me and then subsequently introducing me to Polina, and then now we have a podcast together.
Yeah.
Also, really important, I also want to thank all of the people who have accidentally stumbled into our podcast because they thought we were a true crime podcast because of our bloody logo.
Our terrible bloody logo that I put together in 20 minutes.
I like our logo, and I was there. That was longer than 20 minutes.
It's just because I got new software. I'm usually faster. I'm just not a designer. Not a designer.
Yep.
So yeah, I should probably also really quickly thank my husband, who's been really supportive, has just picked me up, dropped me off, left the house when we're recording, currently wandering around in the rain because he wants, to give me space and watch the movies with me and given me lots of ideas. Is just a delightful person to share a life with. So thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
So shall we dig in?
Let me take the reins for this. I thought it would be great. We had requested all of our wonderful listeners to chime in on all the movies that we've talked about in the last 2 years and let us know what they think happens after the movie's over. I mean, it's what we do with every movie, and sometimes it's not the easiest, hello sequels ruining everything for us, and in turn, making us argue about things. But what I think is really great is we have
But that's my favorite part.
Well, it's how I get to, flex my creative muscle instead of just, being the analytical, plotting the point of, first love equal to x squared plus 5. Works out. So we got a few written in responses, and I thought it would be fun to share those. And what's great is that Plana hasn't seen these yet, so you get to hear her reactions in real time.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. I've been waiting for these. Diana won't let me look at them. Totally.
Okay. So first one comes from, our great listener, Angela. She's on Twitter, Angela to be pecked. And she actually chimed in with a whole bunch of different ones and throughout when the episodes were coming out. And so I asked her if we could, pull them all together and read them up. And she did it for me. And it was just so sweet. So she set it all in one place for me. Here we go. Okay, so for When Harry Met Sally, Harry and Sally are still together. Now, after experiencing fertility problems, they adopt children internationally and are now proud grandparents.
Oh, I love it.
Aww.
I love it.
So funny. No, it's so funny. I'm just waiting for him, pause for her to be very emotional. Okay, go Plana. Yay.
Yeah. Yay.
That's a really good one.
I just love thinking of them as grandparents. I just really love thinking of them as grandparents. I think that's a really nice touch because they have all these older couples at the end of Harry Met Sally. And so thinking of them as that older couple, it just going back to that is really nice. They'll probably be great grandparents.
I can see that, that's a great button on it. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't tell mom the babysitter's dead. Let's get into that mode now. Sue Ellen and Brian rediscover one another in our time, and they're married and divorced other people. They now have a blended family.
I like that one.
I do too, and I think it's a little bit more realistic to, the fact that they started off as rocky as they did and as young as they did. So I can see that, and it works out really well. Yeah,
you're right. I'm trying to go back to those characters because I have to say they don't, I don't have a strong connection, but that is actually quite satisfying. That is a quite satisfying way to end it. I like that one. Man, we need to get her on the show.
We'll reach out soon. Okay, so Pretty in Pink. I know this one speaks to you, and it's a little bit long, so we'll take it one step at a time. Okay.
All right. Deep breaths.
I love this. So Iona will tire of the pet shop guy because she can't be herself and leave him after a few months.
Fair.
Iona is a free spirit and always should be.
Also fair.
She is now with a decade younger musician who adores her spirit.
Oh, yes. I don't remember what I said about Iona or if I said anything at all. I love that. I love that she's with a younger musician. That makes total sense. I love it. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, it speaks a little bit better to the character.
Well, and maybe this few months for Iona is she realizes now what it's like to be treated well, and now she knows what to look for. Now she knows what that looks like. So this works. Okay, great, good one. Damn.
Well, yeah. She's like the mentor there, but that doesn't mean that she herself doesn't also have things to learn about herself.
Of course, she's young. She's older than a teenager, but she's still young.
Okay. So this one, Ducky came into his own in his 20s in the early 90s after him and Iona had a brief fling after he was of age. Oh, wow. Making him get over his romantic Andy obsession. Ah!
Whoa. Good. Oh, yeah. Okay. Like it. I gotta
chew on that one. I gotta chew on that for a second.
But it makes sense.
It does. He and Andy are still best friends and now pretty much family. Aww.
Yeah. Good one.
I can see that. And as Andy gets further into her art, she realizes Blaine is too bland for her. She breaks up with him to discover herself, then move on to an artistic man.
Makes sense. These are all very good.
Here's some.
I can't argue with any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, of course not. And this one I think you'll enjoy. Steph will become the epitome of the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes. Oh, well played.
Excellent. Yes. Blaine is a legit, honest businessman who drops fast living Steph, seeing him as a hazard.
Yep. Yeah, because he's trying to build wealth for the long term.
Oh, it gets better. Steph quickly goes downhill after Blaine drops him.
He needed the steadying influence.
Yeah, you need your friends to be, worth, your weight in cocaine. Oh, speaking of which, Steph ends up in jail for a Ponzi scheme or dead from cocaine addiction. His future can only be dark.
It's true. There's no other way it can go. He has experienced too much growth for that to, there's just too much work to do to make him not have a dark future.
Yeah.
I like it too much. There's not enough therapy in the world. Plus, he kind of seems like he may be a sociopath. So you're right. It can only go dark.
It goes dark. Okay. All right. So we need to, shake that off because that was a very vivid and in-depth description for Pretty in Pink. So this is going to be a funny transition, but let's get away from the death of Steph to let's talk about Better Off Dead.
Excellent segue.
All right. So Better Off Dead. So we've got Lane and Monique. They keep up a pen pal relationship and agree to date other people. After 10 years of failed relationships, he goes on a trip to see her. They soon realize they've fallen in love via letter writing and calls. He proposes to move to live with her, and they elope, and they're still together now.
Oh, that's so good. It's funny. The first minute, I thought you said made plans to go, that they met up at Sears instead of see her. And I just was like, oh, they run into each other in a Sears. What a great detail. And then I realized, no, it's Sears. I was like, wow. I was like, that's a great detail. Sears, not JCPenney, not Kohl's, not Target, Sears.
That sounds like the plot from Serendipity, actually.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Which I've never seen. Okay. I buy that completely. And I wish I had proposed it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And so for the last one, 16 Candles. I do love this one, so brace yourself, Polina.
Okay.
John Cusack's character becomes disgusted with his friend Farmer Ted's creepy antics and drops him as a friend.
Good. Good. Yes.
He's an
I'm all
emo.
in.
He's an emo but sweet geek. He and Samantha become friends after she has a heartbreak with Jake. The friendship turns into love, and they start dating.
Oh, I got chills.
I remember reading this when she tweeted it, and I thought, of course, what is wrong with me in this scenario? She nailed it.
She nailed it all. Damn. Now I just and now the last 2 years I just want to re-record everything. Okay, well, this is why we have guests on. They're smarter than we are. All right, I love it.
Thank you, Angela. That was amazing.
That was great.
We really appreciate you. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was great.
Okay.
I was like, I was sad when you said it was the last one. I was like, oh no. I was no, I want more. That was awesome. Awesome. Well, keep them coming. There is going to be more.
Yeah. Well, no, see that. Oh yeah, no, of course. Hang on, cool your jets here. We got one now. So now it's well, thank you, Angela, for what you sent to us. We got another great response from a non-mom happy hour podcast, and you can reach them at non-mom happy hour. So the response is, let's imagine the endings together. I choose to believe. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I need to back up a step here. Okay. This is a response to Say Anything.
Okay.
Yeah, Say Anything. Okay.
All right.
I choose to believe Lloyd and Diane stayed together forever, had 3 kids, and Lloyd started a dojo or something to teach kids martial arts, and Diane was some kind of brilliant success, and he was never intimidated by her brain/successes.
Good. And love it. It's true. Because that's the key to the whole thing. Yep. Yeah, they need to know which lane they're in and Lloyd seems like a strong enough man. I think he can do that. I think he has his head screwed on straight. Yeah, I love it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Awesome. And I think we've hit something very important with our Cusack episodes because the last email we got is for America's Sweethearts.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was submitted by Nonimous.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So really struggled with picking just one movie to weigh in on. Finally just told myself to make a damn decision and went with America's Sweethearts. All right.
Thank you.
Background. It's emotionally fraught. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Eddie and Kiki are blissfully happy for a while, but eventually begin to struggle with some of the day-to-day aspects of their relationship. They recognize this and try to be proactive by seeing the sage advice of Alan Arkin's wellness guide, who reminds them that life is a cookie.
And
I'm going to pause while you react to that.
wow. I just love the idea of them sitting. I just imagine them sitting in the room together. They're probably late and kind of fighting because somebody didn't turn on insisted on finding the place without turning on the GPS. And then they get in there and he just says, life is a cookie. I love it.
Continuing on, Eddie believes that as someone who has achieved success as an actor, quote, cookie for him is film, movies, Hollywood. He realizes how much he misses this world and is advised that his best chance at a comeback is a script that will come in some form of another. He realizes how much he misses this world and is advised that his best chance at a comeback is a script that will in some form or another bring, quote, America's sweethearts back together again.
Oh.
This, of course, falls right into Kiki's biggest insecurity regarding her relationship with Eddie. Eddie's agent finds the perfect script destined to be the next big blockbuster, and hilarity ensues.
Oh, God. There's going to be another America's Sweethearts. That's my reaction.
Hey, how dare you? Ouch. Okay, fine. I got you. This email ends with two side notes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, this email ends with two side notes. Hector is not invited to the hunket either. And second side note, apologies for all the quotations. And I made it a point to read the quotations to our listeners because I knew what the side notes were.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's a great one. I wish I thought of it, but it does mean that there is another America's Sweethearts, and that I find appalling. But, however, it is an excellent end to their story as people. Delightful.
We will agree to disagree on this one. No problem.
Yes, we will. Can still move on.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Angela and Non-Mom Happy Hour and Al for their writing in of what happens next. We appreciate you.
Yes. Oh, those were so much fun. I'm actually so glad that I got to react to them afresh.
Yeah.
But some of them I have to think about for a while. Fun.
Yeah.
Give me something
chew
to
on
do
them,
with the rest
and then
of the day. Spit it out.
Take some
Twitter.
notes, and then we'll talk about it. No, take some notes, and then we'll figure it out for our 3rd anniversary.
Oh, there we go. Good point. Excellent. Always planning ahead.
All right. And so we also managed to get some people calling in and also leaving in their clips for us. So I'm looking forward to us listening to that.
Yeah. So that's coming up next. So enjoy that.
Yep.
Here we go.
Hello, HEAMCast listeners. This is Justine from the Cutaways Podcast. You may remember me from my recent guest spot talking about Josie and the Pussycats. Well, today I want to talk about what happens after the end of Newsies, because I can remember everything about this movie. So let's do that. So it's 1899, so nothing much good could happen, right? I mean, they're all probably malnourished youngsters who are going to die at a young age or something, orphans. Let's see, Jack Kelly and Sarah. I mean, yeah, I could see them getting together, mostly because there's really no other women in this universe, sad to say. With that, I think David, he can go hook up with Meta Larkin, because he's never seen any woman before either who he's not related to, who isn't a nun. And so I can ship them. Les, he's tiny and small child. I think he's going to die really early. Sorry, Les. You were always kind of annoying to me. Spot Conlon can get it. I'm sure he'll have no trouble staying out of trouble. He's probably going to get arrested multiple times, but he's the cutest guy in the movie, so I Don't see him. I can see him getting out of trouble. Maybe Spot Conlon woos some rich woman. You know, I could see that. Mush and Racetrack, they can spend a lovely life together because they're beautiful. As for like everyone's like newspaper career, I know like David Smart, he's gonna go back to school, and maybe he starts some sort of business to help all the orphans, the street children, something like that. I mean, that's the thing. It's just like it's always David's got the mind, and like Jack's got the action. Jack's got the face. So it's like maybe they go into business together. But I feel like Jack would have some sort of like swindly side business. He's not always on the up and up. I could see lots of tensions happening because like, oh, he's married to his sister. I mean, they're always around each other and business together and family together. Things could go south pretty easily. Jack with his penchant for running away to Santa Fe. Who knows? I mean, if he just starts being honest with himself and his feelings, things could be okay. But it's Jack Kelly. He's raised from the streets. The end.
Hello, Diana and Paulina, and happy birthday to Happily Ever Aftermath. This is Meg from the Indoorswomen Podcast. I absolutely love your show and was so honored to be a guest on your Gattaca episode. So you asked listeners to let you know their thoughts on what happens after the movie is over for any couples you've covered. So I'm chiming in on The Fifth Element, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So I think since Lilu is a supreme being of the universe, and we already know that she has this ultra-enhanced learning, and she really wants to devour all the knowledge she encounters. So as much as she loves Corbin, I think that she will want to experience everything she can in the world and the universe and learn everything she can and just really be a part of humanity. So though I think Corbin will be sad about letting her go on her own adventures, and maybe he'll join her sometimes, but I think he'll eventually accept it because he doesn't want to hold her back, and he knows that she's a greater being with a greater purpose. And I think Lilu might even have other romantic relationships with other people, but she only truly loves Corbin, and so she will return to him again and again when she loses her center or gets world weary or misses him too much. They'll forever share this powerful, most true love that literally saved humanity. So really no one else can compare. And I'm not sure if Lilu is immortal or not, but I do think she will far outlive Corbin because we know that she has these amazing regenerative capabilities. So I do think eventually Corbin will die and she'll sadly outlive him and have to move on without him. But in all her long life, I don't think anyone will ever replace Corbin in Lilu's heart. So thanks again for bringing us your wonderful podcast. I can't wait to hear what you have in store for us.
Hey, Happily Ever Aftermath. This is your faithful listener and friend, Jeri. Okay, I was having such a hard time to talk about which movie, and at first it was going to be When Harry Met Sally, but then today I re-listened to your episode on Working Girl, and how could I possibly have listened to that? I was laughing out loud in the car as I drove along the freeway. But in listening to your guys' episodes, what I realized is the age difference and how you interpret things differently being of a different age. So Working Girl and Harry Met Sally, I was in my 20s, early 20s when those came out, and they were kind of like my coming of age movies. And it cracks me up when you talk about the hair and the clothes and the shoulder pads, etc., because all of that was very au courant at the time. It wasn't cuckoo crazy like it would look now. But Working Girl, back to Working Girl. So the thing about Working Girl, and listening to your commentary on it, one of the things that I really liked was it enabled me to see how far we'd come as a society in a way, because Harrison Ford being all rapey, I think is what you said, but that was kind of de rigueur at the time. That's how men treated women, and that's kind of how things were. Men had more carte blanche. And I think if you go back and look at movies even from earlier decades, you'll see that behavior is more and more prevalent. And I don't see Working Girl as a cutting edge, like women sisters are doing it for themselves, a woman has a job, because the whole premise is, or part of the premise is about how sweet, yet capable, yet smart Melanie Griffith is. But she's still sexier and prettier than Sigourney Weaver, and because of that, that's why she quote unquote wins. Sigourney Weaver is portraying some of those stereotypes about women being backstabby and fighting because they want to be, they want the man or whatever it is. I don't think Sigourney Weaver's endgame was to be a super corporate achiever. I think that was her interim. Anyway, I think it's the fun of movies, how we all interpret them differently and see different things. It's actually the fun of life, right? And having conversations. But that was what was up with my interpretation of Working Girl. Just like I'm pretty sure when Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal got married, she did her I Spy a Family, and that meant her carpooling kids around, etc. If you think that movie was made in 1988 and she was supposed to be 31 at the time, that's not a time when the majority of women were stepping out and doing big things. It's a time when women were still signing up to be stay-at-home and doing a fine job at it, but still stay at home. Because she was 31 in 1988. That means she'd be in her early 60s now. How many women in their early 60s do you know that were super corporate titans? Not that many. I don't think. Anyway, talk to you soon. I can't wait to meet you someday, Paulina. Bye.
Hey, Diane and Paulina. This is Steve from Everything I Learned from Movies. Happy anniversary, first and foremost. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Really appreciate it. I'd love to talk about what happened after the episodes me and Izzy were on, like Revenge of the Nerds and The Thin Man and what happened after that. But the sequels basically speak for themselves. The one movie you guys have done that I really think needed a sequel to really hammer down and get a little darker was 1995's While You Were Sleeping. Now, for those of you who don't know this movie, congratulations, you're under 21. It came out in 1995 and everybody watched it then. But basically it was about a stalker subway ticket booth person played by Sandra Bullock. Apparently she was stalking this business guy, but then she gets bonked on the head. And says she's his fiance, and then falls in love with the brother, Bill Pullman, which perfectly understandable. He's quite a handsome, fetching man. But, yeah, the relationship's based on a whole bunch of bullshit and stalker tendencies, and, the end, oh, hey, let's get married, okay. Oh, the whole family loves the idea, too. Then reality starts to set in when it's like, so you never whatevered with my brother, right? No, never. Did you ever masturbate to him, or perhaps a picture you had of him from surveillance cameras? What? No, well, I mean, no. You had to think there for a sec, didn't you? No, I didn't. Why, what'd you find? Yeah, it'll get dark really quick. That's why I want to be directed by David Cronenberg. Give it that hard edginess that everybody wants out of that story. And then of course the family pitches in too, and they want to keep the family together, but obviously they're meant to be apart. It's a real dark struggle. But yeah, happy anniversary.
Hey, this is Alysa Lucas from Best Forevers, a podcast for Kindred Spirits and Fatalities podcast, and I'm here to give my ending to one of the greatest movies from my childhood, and that is Don't Tell Mom a Babysitter's Dead. So I'm sure you all listened to Paulina and Diana's episode about this particular movie, but I have some thoughts about what should happen after the fact. So, love the movie. It reflects my childhood. Christina Applegate is everything. The little runway show at her house at the end is everything. Those outfits. I don't think anyone would actually wear those uniforms, but it was still pretty cool for the late 80s, early 90s. I'm forgetting which year it came out. But one of the things that I would think that you see at the end of the movie is that Christina Applegate has a lot of talent when it comes to fashion. She knows a lot about it, what looks good, so on and so forth. But she's underage, so that's a problem. She's been faking working, but she's taking care of the entire family, making all this money, and so she's doing a wonderful. But at the end, you sort of see the mom come home and kind of upset with everyone, but at the same time sees that the house is in order, that her son, who's unruly, has cut his hair and seems to be on top of things and making food and all sorts of good stuff. It seems very positive for the entire family. But the way I see this particular aftermath is this. First off, we need to know the laws for where they live and if it is legal to drop off a dead body at a cemetery or at a morgue, or if you're supposed to call the police. So I think that the first thing should be, let's prosecute if we can. Because those kids dropped off that dead babysitter like no one's business. And then, oops, they left the money with her. So that was awkward, right? But that's the first thing I would say is, okay, can anyone be prosecuted? And I think if anyone could, it might actually be the mom who ends up with some sort of misdemeanor or has to pay some sort of fee or something like that. I don't think it would impact the kids, but I feel like that was really brushed over in the movie and seems really inappropriate that they did brush over it. Second thing, I think that this particular summer was really good for Christina Applegate's character, and then the oldest son who cut his hair, I believe is played by Keith Coogan, if I'm correct in the names. And I think for them, that was probably showing that they could adult, as we say now. And I think that the other kids might have seen it come together, but they're probably going to make lots of mistakes. And so I think what would happen with this family after the fact is that they would have a good sort of amount of time where everyone was still on their best behavior. You know, mom is momming, and that everyone is participating and doing chores and helping around the house and cooking and doing the food and that sort of thing. But I think because the majority of people are young, I think the youngest kids will continue to make mistakes until they're older. I think Keith Coogan's character will make a couple mistakes. He might stumble a little bit, but I think that was a great lesson for him. And I think for Christina Applegate's character, she really is going to move on in life, and she's going to do great in fashion wherever she might go. But Josh Charles, who plays the boy interest, which I thought was great, but let's be real, that's not lasting. There's going to be someone else coming up in the future, and so that'll be a fond, high school boyfriend situation to think about fondly for years to come, right? And then I think maybe more importantly is because we're dealing with children and we're dealing with teenagers and then we're dealing with adults. I feel like the mom didn't necessarily go all in on the family. Like, who leaves their 5 kids for that long? Like, I do think especially single moms should be able to do whatever they want, right? Like, she should be able to go on a trip, but I do think, like, we'll go for 2 weeks or do a couple different trips over the summer, but to go for the entire summer seems a little much when you have elementary school and middle school age kids especially. But I feel like in some aspects they sort of communicate in the movie that the mom is really moved by her relationships. And so I think what you would find is that whoever her new relationship is would probably impact the family again. And I think that will continue to impact the kids for years to come. So don't tell mom the babysitter's dead, but also, maybe tell mom that she should focus on the family because it's really going to impact everyone forever. But love that movie. Still don't understand why the police weren't interested about how that lady showed up, especially, I guess they tied it up because the cemetery guys were like, oh, money, but still, like, come on, like, let's pay attention to dead bodies, shall we? And I can't wait to see her fashion line. Like, maybe in the future she ends up on Project Runway. There's a season on right now. Maybe she's on it. All right, that's what I think would be the aftermath of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. And congratulations to you, Diana and
now,
Paulina.
more Alyssa.
I am here to talk about the aftermath of one of my favorite movies of all time, the one that my mom often frowned upon me watching in the first place, and that is Heather, starring Christian Slater, Winona Ryder, and all of the Heathers. Now, this movie is kind of, like, when you think about it, it's kind of messed up, right? So they are really playing with the idea of teenage suicide, but it's a way to cover murders. And so I think it's pretty clear that Christian Slater is totally messed up. And at the end of the movie, when he kind of blows up at the school, we're kind of like, not going to miss that guy. But basically, at the heart of it, this movie is about the in-group and the out-group, and Winona Ryder's trying to be part of the in-group, but it's like a job to be popular and shit, as she says in the movie. And she has terrible friends. Every Heather, although individually might have something to offer together in the group, they really sort of rally each other up and really have these impossible expectations to meet, and that they're trying to sort of quote unquote rule the school and be popular and so on and so forth. And it's a bunch of bullshit, but I guess if Winona Ryder's character doesn't do that, then she could get the really nasty side of the Heathers, which I feel like when you're friends, you get the nasty side, but when you're not friends with them, you get the even nastier side. And so through this movie, we see sort of each Heather, quote unquote, get taken down. The Queen Bee Heather McNamara, I believe, is her last name for that movie. I think she was so influential that the loss of her really impacted everyone in a way that they were all trying to take her spot, seeing as like she says in the movie, either you want to be me or you want to be with me, and that's the clean version of it. And so you see like the next Heather try to take over, and then you see the next Heather, and at the end what you see is Winona Ryder walking out with Martha Dump Truck is the nasty nickname that she's received. She's in a wheelchair from trying to walk out in front of traffic and commit suicide herself. And so you see them sort of quote unquote ruling the school, getting rid of all the things that all the people have been problematic, and really make it sort of a nasty place to be. And I hate to say this, but I think the true aftermath here is that for not very long, you will see Winona Ryder and Martha Dump Truck, again, the nasty name they give her, being in charge of the school, so to speak. Like, so she rid them of all these things, so maybe they can all breathe easy. But I think what we see is that no matter what, that there's always someone who's going to be in a situation of having status, being popular, and it might not even be like the usual, like, this person's the quarterback and this person's the cheerleader, which might be stereotypically what we see in high schools. But I think that naturally there are people who lead, and that there are naturally people trying to figure out how to fit in. And so especially in a high school, I think what you would see is that a quote unquote another Heather would pop up, and it might not be a Heather, they might not be as nasty, but I think you start to see a pattern of behavior, especially when you think about people graduating. And it reminds me of Gossip Girl, that when they had sort of a queen bee situation, you had Blair Waldorf, and then you had sort of her minions or her soldiers, and then they would determine who the next person was, and they would pass that power on, almost like after doing interviews, like it's a position and it's gone through HR, right? And I think that they did it formally, but I think you see that informally, that there's always going to be people on the top and there's always going to be people on the bottom. And I love that movie. I think there's a lot of great commentary on a wide range of issues and sort of a snarky view on high school. And it really gets to me as someone who studies friendship, is that this idea of people trying to fit in, and that I think that is something that doesn't go away. We're always trying to find our way around this world, whether it be in high school or not. And so although Winona Ryder cleared up the school of crazy folks. Well, crazy isn't the right word, sorry. Well, maybe in this case, Christian Slater's character was completely deranged, so maybe that's okay, but I'm not trying to speak lightly about mental health. But he was a psychopath, and he just wanted to destroy everyone. And although she got rid of that for the school, and there might be some appreciation, I think you're going to see people who care about popularity and power a little bit more than Veronica, the Winona Ryder character. You're going to see people pushing for that role. So unfortunately, I just think that what Winona Ryder did was just a blip on the radar and just a pause in the process of popularity. And again, my mom did not want me to watch it. She hated that I liked that movie and still does. But there's something about it that is really just both real and both out of this world at the same time. It's just a wild movie. But I think it really gets at this idea that you can kill someone off, right? That doesn't stop them, that position, from being filled by someone else, right? I think it is inherently human to be in groups. I think it's inherently human that naturally or forced or through elections or HR, whatever the case is, you're going to find someone on top and then everyone else trying to find their footing. So maybe not the happiest end to Heathers. Like at the end, you're like, yeah, but then it's like, wait, who's next? Who's in charge next, right? So that is what I think would happen at the end of Heathers. And Diana and Polina, congratulations on an amazing podcast. And everyone should be listening. So I'm going to go tell all my friends. And you should too. Bye.
Next up is Amanda, who wrote in to talk about her top 5 couples that she thinks are going to be in it for the long haul. Amanda is a movie podcast machine. She has Amanda's Picture Show A Go-Go, Culture Pop A Go-Go, The Mafia Minute, and Criterion Crack. All are fantastic, and I highly recommend that you check all of those out. She writes in, couple number 5, Nora and Nick in The Thin Man. So based on the amount of sequels, I obviously know they stay together, but beyond that, they have so much respect for each other and their chemistry is amazing. Number 4, Julia and Robbie on The Wedding Singer. They have the same values and life goals, and their love is built on friendship. Number 3, Tula and Ian in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I don't really like what they did in the couple in the sequel, so I'll try to forget that. It didn't feel authentic to their characters, which is 2 people who truly love each other and talk to each other about their lives. Number 2, Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing. The chemistry, plus these 2 again have a basis in friendship and a trust and understanding of each other. And number 1, Sally and Harry in When Harry Met Sally. I mean, we see them over 10 years and they go through so much together. They have a beautiful foundation of friendship and truly knowing who the other person is. Thank you so much, Amanda. Those are all awesome.
Well, that was really fun. It was really, really fun listening to everybody's thoughts.
Thank you for sharing, everybody.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
I think I've even enjoyed talking about the movies that I didn't like almost more than the movies I did. That's what I've learned in 2 years of this podcast.
Well, something I found when I asked people to tell us what happens, after the movie is over, a lot of the people in my life, one, they thought about it a lot, which is, I love that it's not just something where they're just like, oh yeah, here, really quick, I'm done. Instead, they were kind of thoughtful about it. Yeah. And even more importantly, they didn't really want to talk about the movies that they loved as much because, this is just my theory. They're so invested in the story, they don't want to dictate any of that. So instead, they went to stories that they enjoyed, but they aren't as invested in it, so they could say like, oh yeah, they totally went off on this direction. I think that's kind of like another reason why people are so upset when a movie comes out like a sequel and then it just messes with the characters that they love. And then it just gets so angry about it. Yeah. I don't even think people want to write their own happily ever after for their own characters that they love. So
yeah,
it's better insight. That's something.
I get that, because actually that's one of the reasons I hate sequels. Like you hit it on the head. Don't want them messing with it. I don't want them messing with those people. They're my people now. It sometimes feels like they take the thing that I found special that I thought only I thought was special, kind of like ruins it and kind of makes that the commodity. And I don't know. That's what I don't like. And I also, I've said before, I'm also not a big, same reason I don't like books. I don't always like to see the books of the movie of a book that I love.
Okay, because the sentence I heard was, this is why I don't like books. And I'm like, honey, you love books.
You love books. You love them so much.
So again, thank you so much for the last 2 years of podcasting. That's to you, Polina, not the listeners.
Oh, no, thank you. I think I've told you I've worked for a podcasting company. I've tried to start podcasts. I've been on podcasts, and this was so much fun. I mean, doing it alone is maybe easier. Maybe it's easier to schedule, but doing this podcast with you is the most fun I've had in the past 2 years, and has also got me through some kind of, it's been a great 2 years, but it's also been a really rough. It's been super fun having this as a happy constant in my life. Thank you, Diana. Best podcast partner ever.
Thanks, Paulina. Aw, thank you so much.
I'm going to edit that out because I'm worried someone will steal you as a podcast partner once they...
Well, you're the editor, so I have no control over that. I'm sorry. All right, now, if I may take over for a second, I now excitedly announce for our next episode, we will be talking about 1995's Sense and Sensibility with an incredible guest, Janet Varney from the JV Club, Stand Against Evil, Fortune Rookie. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to begin, but it was actually something that I really wanted to get from day one of the podcast, and we made it happen. So I'm very excited. Okay, that's next time.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. And the same thing. She's so much fun to talk to, which seems obvious if you're a fan. But so definitely listen.
Yep. Very excited for that. We'll talk to you then.
Yes, definitely. And again, if you have any other ideas if you want to chime in after this episode, you can do that on Twitter. Okay, I'll do it. HEAMCast?
I'm just enjoying watching you do this, and then I realized, well, you're doing it out of order, so let's see how far you get.
Let's see. Yeah, it'll be a second anniversary treat, which is that I do these things. So we're on Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath. You can write to us at contact@heamcast.com. You can tweet at us and read the other great tweets that people send us at HEAMCast, which is HEAMCAST. And you can find us on all the podcatchers, including Spotify and YouTube, because Diana made that happen.
Hey, you did it.
I did. Yay. And I had no notes. Can you believe it? I actually remembered something while I was recording. That's amazing. Usually too many things are running through my head. Yeah, I'm not going to do that again though. So or until our 3rd anniversary. Well, that was fun.
That was great.
Thank you for listening, and definitely join us next time for Janet Varney talking about Sense and Sensibility.
We'll see you then.
Bye.